Hello and welcome to Left Coast Live. It is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. I am back home after a couple of weeks in the mountains. Thank you, StatPat, for holding down the fort while I was gone. We did check in the lead up to the inauguration, but we have not had a live stream since the beginning of the Trump administration, which began yesterday.
Hmm.
And I was paying attention to your live stream last night, so I thought I might open up tonight's discussion with just a general sense of what I feel about the future
Hmm.
because I was in a place where I got to reflect a lot and think about what this country is going to go through these next 4 years and where we're going to be in 4 years. Because I think
Yeah,
some things are very predictable and some things aren't.
for
In
real.
general, I feel anxious. I feel anxious not just for myself and the stress that's going to come from not knowing where this country is going to go in a microeconomic sense, at
Hmm.
least not, and maybe that's me just not wanting to admit that it's going to get really, really bad or even worse.
Right.
As discussed in previous episodes, mass deportations and tariffs, I think, will have an immediate effect on the American public and the way it perceives this Trump administration if these accusations that MAGA has become fascist are to be taken seriously. I think it is the mass deportations that will encourage people to get there who aren't there yet.
Day
Um,
one,
yeah,
day one,
so
he signed an executive order ending birthright citizenship.
yeah,
This is something that we warned about many streams ago.
yep,
This is an idea that was being floated, and a lot of people thought it was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, why would he do that? He did the first fucking day, one of the first executive orders that he signed. Of course, it's going to be challenged in court eventually because the 14th Amendment protects birthright citizenship. From the looks of it, this doesn't apply to people right now, but from here on out. But either way, the Supreme Court is going to take a look at this, and we know how they lean. So hopefully, they actually do like an actual, just like obvious reading of the 14th Amendment. It just take it at its word, and so like maybe it'll get reversed, but I'm not.
so
Who knows?
it's impossible to know for sure how this thing is going to take place. The only thing you got is kind of a general sense for how the individual states are going to cooperate.
Hmm.
And when I see those cities listed, think they're going to get a lot of protests in those cities if they try to go after those big cities first. So this comes
Yeah.
down to whether or not the Trump administration wants to go after the blue cities first, or if they want to go after the low hanging fruit, which would most likely be Texas. That's going to be the state
Right.
government that's going to cooperate most quickly. Maybe Arizona
Hmm.
as a close second, and then other non-border states like Florida. You know,
Right. From what I understand, the biggest American cities, like the largest American cities, most of them are actually on a list of ice raids, upcoming ice raids, and included in that is Baltimore, Chicago, New York,
yeah,
Los
Boston's out of it,
Angeles,
right?
yeah, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Milwaukee, um, a handful of others. So they're definitely going after a lot of the major cities first, and of course, like major cities for the most part are the most like deep blue areas because most
Yeah.
people live there, and for various psychological and sociological reasons, they tend to vote Democrat over Republican. But that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah, it's
it's
in my
it's going to
essays. We've
happen.
covered it a while ago.
Mhm.
It's life experience. The otherizing
Exactly.
doesn't work as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Scapegoat politics, as we. I hope we get credit for that if that turns out to be a popular saying, because it really is perfect for
Hmm.
what You know, my entire life studying oppression, studying power structures, trying to understand who's in charge, why, and if they suck, how to replace them.
Yeah.
What is the method by which conservatism, which is intellectually empty,
Hmm.
there is no intellectual justification for the ideology of conservatism within a global economy such as the one that we live
Yeah.
in now, if your goal is to make society better generation to generation. If that's your goal.
Right.
That's it's like in economics there are two assumptions that automatically hinder all of economic analysis. One is that people are rational
Hmm.
and make informed decisions as a consumer. That's the second assumption, is that they're aware of all of their options.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not true. So when so
Exactly.
using GDP per capita to assess the quality of an economy in today's world is not an accurate depiction of the quality of life in that
Exactly.
society.
Right.
So we need progressive leaders who are going to come around and talk about multivariables of understanding the quality of life here in the USA, which is going to go down in these next 4 years, man.
Yeah. Something that actually stood out to me when Andrew Yang was running for president. He actually shared a sort of graph that broke down how we can expand how to measure the quality of life in the country more so than GDP, because we look at like how great is the country doing. We look at GDP. There's a whole lot of other factors that are at play. What's the poverty rate? How much are we considering literacy or infant mortality, or like income, and how wages are doing. There's a whole lot more factors that should be taken a lot more seriously, but it's not. And you were talking earlier about i- if conservatives if conservatives are concerned about the future when it comes to the global economy and creating a better world and a better future, then they would actually have their place in society. But the current set of conservatives that we have in this country, the current conservative ideology doesn't account for improving the future at all. Not in any meaningful metric at all. It's self-serving, it's scapegoating, it's self-aggrandizement, sensationalism, and it just lining one's own pockets. If I as long as I get mine, then fuck you. It's,
When I started my channel for real, I wanted to paint conservatives psychologically, or I should say, when I started this channel a few years ago for real and got into the nitty gritty writing of the essays about conservatism, because I do think, as someone who grew up in a conservative household and transcended that ignorance through education and life experience, I have a lot to offer with respect to explaining why people are the way they are if they are conservative. And I was talking with someone today about how there are different forms of stupidity, there are different forms of insanity. My value is pretty specific. I understand conservatism, and I can actually reduce it down because it is so simple to a personality comparison. Conservatives in America are nothing more than teenagers at oldest throwing a hissy fit. They're children. They're
yeah.
overgrown children. And what you just said is very childish. I want what I want now. I don't understand why I can't get what I want by having to wait for serious change to
Hmm.
happen in our political world.
Yeah.
And they have been convinced that the Democrats are going to turn us into communist Russia, Cold War Russia. I mean, that's really the hell of it all
Mm-hmm.
is these MAGA trash, rural, uneducated whites who are voting against their own economic interests.
Mm-hmm.
I the fact that they think like Ben Shapiro is insightful, the fact that they find
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Carlson not disgusting, like that they can't see through this malaise of
Mm-hmm.
right wing propaganda suggests to me, it proves to me something I've known for a long time, and I'm hoping that people who are watching this understand these are not reasonable people.
Yeah.
These are not reasonable people, and the more committed you are to understanding them as children, the better chance we have of bringing big change to America. And I ask
Yeah.
people, I say, do you respect a child throwing a temper tantrum? And
Mm-hmm.
the answer is, of course you don't. And as soon as you do, as soon as you're like, oh, baby, are you okay? Just, it's going to be all right. Or you let the child affect you, the
Mm-hmm.
child's in control.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the problem here, like, is the politics of civility, which I heard a lot on
Yeah.
Morning Joe about today. And that time has come and gone.
Yeah.
We don't have the Cold War context, which used to motivate Republicans and Democrats to work together and
Right.
actually make big change happen. It was the
Mm-hmm.
wrong kind of change in a lot of circumstances, but they still worked together because they were going to beat the Ruskies. And we don't have that geopolitical context anymore.
Yeah.
That's this wave of fascism, though, isn't unique to America. It's happening in a lot of other places.
Yes.
And but if we are to transcend this white trash takeover of America, we're also going to have to lead these other nations and be an example for how to get out of it. And I think the answer is to stop respecting the other side. They don't respect you.
Yeah.
Why should you respect them? They don't respect. I mean, he didn't have one moment in his inauguration of cheers to the Democrats, they're patriots, or something like that. I
Of
mean,
course not.
all of
Of
his
course
speech
not.
was, I mean, and I wasn't expecting it, but I heard other commentators make that comment. And yeah,
Like, what were
it's
you
like
expecting?
you couldn't, yeah, but at the same time, like, we're dealing with the normalization here. I think that's our big
Yes.
topic for discussion today is
Mm-hmm.
how you've got Carrie Underwood singing at the national anthem now. You've
Yeah.
got Snoop Dogg doing a ball for cryptocurrency, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, funny enough,
what?
it's like, oh my god! And of course, just before inauguration, Trump launched this crypto coin, and it was just
Yeah.
a gigantic scam. People lost
Yes.
thousands upon thousands of dollars. He's like an infamous scam artist. He's introduced all sorts of things that have went belly up, that have completely flopped. He has a history of this shit, but of course, this doesn't even register to a lot of people. Like, he's all about branding and putting his name on shit. Why not do a cryptocurrency? It's a lot of it nowadays is a lot of pump and dump schemes. It's like,
Yep.
oh, like this coin is the best and
Artificial value.
biggest thing, and then like people like just put all their value into it, put a bunch of money into it, and it fucking flops, and the people on top get away with the bulk of the money. Yeah,
I don't know if it
no,
was Karl Marx or another intellectual, but there is a criticism of capitalism that if it goes unregulated, if it's allowed to run wild within a society, the marketplace will create products and services that are not only unnecessary
hmm
but actually counterproductive
like
to
literally like
productivity that have no
selling
value.
nothing.
Right.
Yes, it's like literally selling nothing,
Yeah.
marketing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, late stage capitalism is moving into the end stages, and
Yeah,
it's
and
gonna get a lot worse.
if we had a more educated population, maybe we could make logical arguments about what needs to happen next. But my argument is an emotional one where I'm sick of these bullies running the show. I'm sick of these white trash bullies putting their people into positions of power and holding the country back because we could be a great society, but we just aren't educated. We don't know what's good for us. And now you're going to have a ruling class, American aristocracy, American nobility, American oligarchy. Use your favorite word that ends in Y to describe the wealthy in America running the show now. And the thing about American aristocracy in contrast with like old England or old France is it's not transparent. We know who Elon is, but we don't. There are a bunch of other people who are anonymous that are contributing to campaigns that we don't even know who they are.
No, of course. Yeah, but of course, like the biggest names are like should be public enemy number one, the primary targets. Like the fact that at the inauguration you had like the three wealthiest people in the United
Yeah,
States in that fucking room.
it's disgusting.
The same room as Bernie Sanders, the poor fucking guy who he was sitting in front row, like arms folded, fucking never stood up. Goddamn, he these people control basically everything now. These people
Yeah,
control everything now. Like they dumped a shitload of money into Trump's campaign, into his inauguration fund, and they're going to have a major say on all his policies for the future. It- this is pretty much unarguable, and like TikTok granting, giving credit to Trump for unbanning TikTok or whatever the fuck when
yeah,
it was kind of mostly Trump's idea anyway back in 2020. Like he kept on saying that he was going to ban it. Like this is all like his fucking fault. But that's the thing too. You mentioned Marx and it talked about late stage capitalism, creating problems that aren't actually there and then fixing them. You
yes,
know, this is how a lot of fascism works as well.
yeah.
It's making enemies, making scapegoats, and then saying like, "I am going to be the hero. I'm going to be the one who solves this."
Well, when the people are divided, then the ruling class can do what they want without consequence
Hmm.
because the people aren't
Exactly.
paying attention. It's the right
Exactly.
wing magic trick. I mean, just all of
Hmm.
my essays that I've done so far, I'm like, I don't mean to be pretentious or arrogant or whatever, but
Hmm.
it's amazing how consistent, like some of the shit I wrote 4
Yes.
years ago. And it's amazing to me how consistent the conservative ideology is. All it is a
It really
devolving.
is.
It's the devolution of Reaganism into Trumpism and taking that kind of dog whistle, clandestine,
Yeah.
implicit scapegoat politics that has defined our sociocultural political temperature for the last 45 years and made it just more explicit. And it's
That's
just
what
like it's all in front of us now. Like you can
literally.
see it with your own
Hmm.
eyes, people.
Yes.
It's
It,
right here staring you in the face.
it is
And it's
insane.
really like that movie Don't Look Up. Just don't, right there saying don't look at it. Don't look at how white trash Trump is. And that's one
Hmm.
of the big separations that you and I make. I think I don't contrast to a lot of people is do you judge the Trump supporters? And I think you do now. I think it's a three strikes and you're out situation. I think I
No. Yeah.
said it on your chat last night, but it's three strikes and you're out for me. You voted for Trump 3 times. Please leave the
Yeah.
country or otherwise don't vote. Get out of
Yeah.
my way because you are the
For real.
problem. Like
Like
Trump is just being Trump. Like we didn't
right.
have to reelect him. Okay, fine.
Exact.
He fooled you in 2016. He pulled the inside straight electorally. Fine. Okay, we eat that one, and then we get him out, and then we put him back in. I mean,
Yeah. We
it's
just don't. We
insanity.
don't learn. We don't fucking
It's
learn.
insane. It's insanity. It
Yeah.
legitimately is the Alcoholics Anonymous definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over. and expecting a different result. Everybody likes to use that definition of insanity. There are different
Right.
kinds of insanity, but that's the Alcoholic Anonymous definition, and I think it applies. And our addiction
100%.
is white trash ignorance. Our addiction is what I'd like to start calling, and I hope it spreads, is Confederate Christian capitalist nationalism.
Hmm. Yeah.
And or the Confederate capitalism is probably the easier one, so it's not a mouthful. But
No, of
I want
course.
to bring back this word Confederacy. A lot of liberals don't want me to that I've talked to are like, oh, it's too much. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is time to invoke every single possible weapon at
Hmm.
our disposal, short of violence. And was watching the Letter Hack a couple of weeks ago, and the transgender host on there was like, I'm going to voter shame the fuck out of you if I find out
Hmm.
you voted for Trump. And I'm like, yeah, good. Me too.
No, that and that's the thing too. Like people just can't be bothered. Like I've already mentioned how the way I look at things is harm reduction. I looking like between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris,
Right.
it's pretty much unquestionable that Kamala Harris would have been the lesser evil, without a doubt. Like just based on Trump's day one alone, how much he is unraveling, what he has signaled, who he has
Mm,
put in his cabinet,
mm.
who
Yeah.
who backs him.
Yeah.
Everything that he's signaling to do, he really is dead set on just turning this fucking country upside down, for the worst. It could have been avoided, but a lot of people couldn't be bothered to you know you've probably seen the polls. You've probably seen like the exit polls or the the polls that were taken of voters that just sat out the election or didn't bother voting for Kamala Harris. And the number one reason was Gaza,
Yeah.
the Israel Gaza policy. Nothing was
Right.
changing under Biden. Kamala didn't have the spine to fucking pressure Biden to change our policy because who knows, she probably takes APAC money as well. And the same goes for the majority of the Senate and the House.
Yeah.
Like that was like the issue that if fucking handled properly could have saved the country, could have saved the world.
Right.
No.
Well, I
Yeah.
have hope
Thanks,
actually
Israel.
that. So here's what's going to happen in the next 4 years from now. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years, but I
Hmm.
know by the end of it, it'll be like a 2008 or 2020 election where the incumbent is so bad that no matter who the Democratic nominee is, they're going to win the election. Remember, Obama's greatest accomplishment is not beating McCain or Romney, it's beating Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primary.
Hmm.
So that primary in 2028 is going to probably feature Wes Moore from Maryland, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan,
Hmm.
and Gavin Newsom, the odds on favorite for California.
Right.
What I think that we'll get is just a recycling of
Neoliberalism.
neoliberalism, incrementalism, still just stagnation. I don't see any progressive leaders with the name recognition other than AOC. And like we discussed, I don't think she's management material.
Hmm.
I think she's a creature of DC, and that's cool because we need more of them. But I think the best progressives can hope for is that we're able to influence whoever comes out of that 2028 primary, whether it be Wes Moore or Gavin or Gretchen Whitmer. But
Right.
because I want to believe that there's a voice out there. There's someone who's going to do what I want to do, which is personify American anger and make anger political productivity,
Yeah.
because people have a right to be pissed, especially people like me who have studied all these mistakes that we just keep making as a culture and as a society and as a government. I mean,
Right.
this trickle down economics has been proven to not work. And
Yeah.
yet, rural white trash America keeps voting for Reaganomics.
Yeah.
It's like cutting taxes for the wealthy and corporations does not trickle down to you. That economic benefit does not trickle down to you.
Mm.
It doesn't. It's been proven to not
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. So we would need an entirely new kind of Democrat. Like Megan
Yes.
here says, DNC corruption ruined 2016 and 2024 for the candidates. I couldn't agree more. The people involved in these races and these like Democratic campaigns for the candidate on the Democratic side for both of those elections, especially, they can't be involved. No,
No.
no more Biden people, no more
Yep.
Obama people,
Right.
no more Clinton people.
Yep.
Otherwise, this shit's just gonna happen all over again. We need a new kind of fucking Democrat.
That's what my channel is solely focused on for the foreseeable future is taking a blowtorch to baby boomer neoliberals. I'm so sick of it. I'm
No,
so sick
yeah,
of them being in leadership. They do not understand this world. They do not understand this economy. They do not
yes,
understand the flaws of capitalism. They have been pulled to the right since 1980 because we wanted to feel like winners coming out of the Cold War, and then we never adjusted.
hmm
Clinton, W, and then even Obama, right?
yeah,
Even Obama caved on a lot of issues.
yep,
And as you have articulated, opened the door for someone like Trump because at the end of the day, the branding problem with the DNC is Democrats don't deliver.
hmm
They overpromise and don't deliver. And
yeah,
that has to do with the contradictions of campaign finance,
hmm
the policy contradictions, the contradictions of interest that are created by a deregulated campaign finance system.
yes,
Your most important question for any political candidate is how does your agenda differ from the agenda of your donors?
right. Yeah, no, exactly. And speaking of taking a blowtorch to the establishment, whoever gets in there has to be completely ruthless to MAGA, completely
Yes.
ruthless to the fascists. There's no compromise. There's no more room for
Right.
compromising anymore.
Right.
And if you want to win in 2028, it has to be overwhelmingly because
Yes, you need both
th-
houses.
well, not only that, but they're going to try to rig it. They're like because they don't give a fuck anymore. If they have all the power, if they understand that they need some sort of democratic process. But what happens if that democratic process takes their power away? They're not going to stand for that. They're fascists.
Yes,
All they want is
they're
power. They
gonna.
want to keep the
That's yes.
yeah.
They don't
They,
care
they,
about the
they
rules.
yeah. They
No,
want to
it's a
keep the ground.
good
Of
point. They're
course,
gonna rewrite. They're gonna try to
and
rake
that's
the
another thing
country
too.
again in
Yeah,
4 years.
The Democrats care way too fucking much about the rules, and
Right.
so of course, like it would have to be overwhelming. Like the next 4 years would have to be so bad to where it would have to like take a look at it like the way we did in 2020. Anybody but Trump.
Right, and that's what I think we're gonna get
I
in
hope so.
2028 is an anybody but MAGA
But then again,
candidate.
yeah, it's because JD Vance is obviously going to be the head of the
We'll
Republican
see,
ticket by
but
then.
yeah,
Maybe.
he's definitely the front runner for 2028 as far as the Republican ticket goes. He
Yeah.
represents the next step of MAGA, which is the techno. What do you call it? The technocracy,
Yeah.
the
Technocracy. Yeah.
technocrats.
That's right. That's right.
And I mean, I don't think Elon realizes how much this country is starting to hate him.
Of course,
I don't
especially after
think,
yesterday.
like, if he has a falling out with Trump, which everyone seems to think is inevitable,
hmm
he's going to be in danger. People are
Yeah.
going to want to take him out for a lot of the shit that he has said and done.
No, of course. And one of the one of the big things is because I've thought a lot about this. it's been reported from a lot of people that are actually within the circle of Trump and Elon that Elon annoys the absolute shit out of Trump. But the thing is, I think I talked about this in my stream yesterday. Elon is literally the richest fucking person on the planet.
Right.
Trump is actually a lot more broke than he tries to make that he allows to be believed. He needs Elon. He needs his support. He needs his funding. He needs his influence. And
Well,
as
Hitler needed Goebbels, dude.
as hard as
Hitler
it's going to
needed
be, yeah,
Goebbels. It's
yeah,
he's Goebbels. He's
yeah,
Goebbels. It's not complicated.
it really isn't. It's
Elon
really,
Musk is the Goebbels of MAGA.
yeah,
Period. It
yeah,
used to be Steve Bannon behind the scenes, right?
yeah,
But now it's really Elon.
yeah.
So
I
the
mean
Nazi
that.
comparison, man, I mean, let's not be afraid of it. Let's just embrace it. It's so
Hmm.
fucking true. And if you plant those seeds now, I think over the next 4 years, people will be like, yeah, this really is fascism. They might not be, I mean, these internment camps might not be necessarily killing people in the same way the Nazis killed the Jews, but they're still indicative of a fascist government.
No, of course, and they don't exactly need to do like mass killing either. They could just like do mass neglect instead, like
Yeah,
what we've already been seeing. It's like they don't have to be explicit with it. They could like it can just be mass neglect. I mean, for crying out loud, we live in a fucking country where fucking homeless people are not allowed in warming
yeah,
centers
yeah,
when it's like sub-zero temperatures outside.
yeah,
Like for crying out fucking loud, like we don't give a shit. Like and the whole system is built around neglect because it like people operate from a standpoint of saving themselves, putting themselves first, and just like fuck everybody else. Like I said, it's
yeah.
like why should I care? And this like this mentality, this mindset is the erosion of the fabric of society.
Yes,
Period. Bar
yes.
none. Like give a shit, empathize, fucking, or everything's gonna fall the fuck apart. It really that's all it fucking comes down to. So it makes fucking sense that a lot of these like right wing types are so quick to dismiss empathy as a philosophy or an
Weakness.
idea. Yes, exactly. Like Ben Shapiro made a big stink of it. He's like multiple times he's made a big stink of it. Like empathy is stupid. It's just like why wouldn't you have empathy fucking drive your politics?
Because you're a sociopath.
Yeah, that's really all it fucking comes down to. They're all fucking sociopaths.
The leaders are. I think the people are just ignorant. The people who are
Yes,
doing the listening
yes,
to MAGA propaganda and voting Republican, voting against their socioeconomic interests. I mean, this is the great challenge for the left is we have to stand in judgment of them.
yeah,
We have to judge them. It's time.
yes,
It's long overdue, as a matter of fact. We have to
yeah,
judge them as counterproductive citizens. This is not like we agree to disagree and we inch along in the right direction. This is the collapse of our socioeconomic structure.
hmm,
And we need the next generation of leaders to be unapologetic in their approach to remaking society. That's what we really need to advocate for is where this is a complete makeover of
hmm,
American society. That's
yeah,
what we need. I mean, the Roosevelts are the best example. I mean, Teddy busted up the trusts and FDR established the precedent that the federal government is responsible for managing our country's infrastructure, which allows our economy to run and provide for its people.
yeah.
And
We
you
need
could come
people that,
you have to have examples of government doing good things at the ready for these conversations. And that's one
exactly.
thing I don't that's one thing that Bernie said to Hassan Abi in their conversation
Hmm.
was this party doesn't think that our system is broken. They think they can still make progress within the context of this system. And
No,
the answer is absolutely no. This system
so
needs to
long,
be blown up.
yeah, so long as you think catering to Republicans and catering to the billionaire class, catering to super PACs, which are funded by mega millionaires and billionaires. As long as you think that just going that route will actually change our society for the better, you're just too far gone. You're
Yeah.
in the way. You're in the
Yeah, you're the
fucking way.
problem. They're the problem
Exactly.
because there are a lot more of them than the technocrats. The technocrats are like 0.001% of our society,
Yeah.
and then everyone
Yeah.
it's the people that are stupid, stubborn, and sociopathic enough to listen to them and think that those people have their best interests. All it really is a transference of what they did with Trump at the beginning,
Hmm.
right? They
Yeah.
It's the false god. They
Yes.
worship at the altar of the unregulated free market, and that manifests as worshiping billionaires. They're just
Yeah.
smarter and they worked harder than you did. Give me a break. Like if you
God.
understand capitalism, one thing that like I don't think a lot of people understand about capitalism who are reluctant to criticize it is the real wealth, right? There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich means you have a high income, okay? You got a
Yeah.
high salary, you got a good paying job. That means you're rich, right?
Yeah.
Wealthy means that you're so rich that you're living off of your investment returns.
Right.
That every year you become wealthier not because of your job, but because of the growth in your investment portfolio.
That's exactly it. Like people really do not understand the dangers of such concentrated wealth in the hands of few. Like if Elon Musk wanted to, he can allocate money anywhere he wants to influence entire societies in whatever way he pleases.
Right.
If he assembles a big enough network of people with a certain goal, with a certain idea, with a certain set of uh, principles and values that he wants to like get across, like he can literally change entire societies, entire
Yes.
countries. That's what he's working on right now. And like now he's setting his sights on Europe. Make Europe great again. It's so like hello, like how fucking more blatant can you get? It's he's a fucking oligarch, and he's setting his sights to the entire fucking world, to wherever wherever he can assert his influence, because he
Yeah.
has the fucking money to do so. He's the richest fucking person in the world, and he's not the only one doing this, by the way.
He's a power addict.
Yeah, yeah,
He wants attention, and that attention is coming from access and influence of power.
can you imagine if he actually used
It's so
his money?
cyclical. Yeah, go ahead.
No, can you imagine if Elon Musk actually used his money to better humanity? Like he can, like he a while back he actually did a poll on Twitter, or like asked for some studies that showed, well, yeah, you only need this much money to solve world hunger for years and years to come, and it was well within Elon Musk's net worth. And he asked about it, and then just like dismissed it when it proved like, oh yeah, he could easily fucking afford to do that. And this goes for so many other fucking issues that like I forget like the world in America alone, in the United States alone, so many fucking issues that he can throw money at without any fucking financial pain whatsoever, and he just won't do it. It's not that he can't do it; it's that he won't. Like it's been pointed out, like, hey, you can literally like solve all these issues with like the amount of fucking wealth that you have. You can just allocate money here and there, and so many of these problems can be solved. But like, what the fuck does he do instead? He buddies up with a bunch of fascists on a website that he bought, and tries to like make inroads with certain communities, so like they would think he's cool, like the gaming community. He fucking like had a fake account that like somebody boosted for him, so everybody thought that he was this fucking top tier gamer. Turns out he didn't even know actually how to fucking even play the game when he streamed it. He's just fucking pathetic. Why are these fucking uber wealthy people so fucking pathetic? It's so cringeworthy.
Yeah, small dick
Yeah.
energy. Um,
For real. Like, oh my, yeah. Oh my god. It's been such a frustrating past 72 hours. That's for damn sure.
well, you, if you play the long game, you realize that like even if Elon gets no consequences right now and no immediate consequences, once Trump is out of office and Elon, if Elon's still alive, tries to reinsert himself into American culture, he's gonna get protested and he's gonna get boycotted and he's gonna get
Hmm.
harassed. Like he shows up in Hollywood, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
shows up in New York City. He shows up in Boston. Like if he goes to any of these major metropolitan areas once Trump is out of office, he's gonna get harassed.
No, yeah,
He's gonna get harassed.
there's a reason why he shut down the account on Twitter that literally tracked all his
Right.
flights. It's cuz he thinks he's going to get got.
Yeah.
Like like of course if you're that powerful, you do think like people are going to be out to get you, but it's also how you fucking conduct yourself. So if you're associating with some far right fucking types who are spreading like great replacement theory bullshit and fucking anti-Semitic garbage or some racist fucking drivel, yeah, you probably have some reason to be afraid because people don't respect that shit
Right.
unless you're like part of the scum that fucking endorses that shit to begin with. But of course, those people are few and far between. They fucking live online. They scroll on Twitter. They scroll through Twitter and fucking 4chan at 18 hours a day. They're like the lowest amongst society. But like, that's what you want to fucking make inroads with. Like, why? So like, of course, like he has every reason to be fucking fearful of retribution now more than ever. Now that he fucking did that Roman salute
Yeah.
yesterday. It's like, oh my fucking god, how pathetic!
Yeah.
Just own it. Just fucking own it.
That's kind of what I was talking about earlier,
Cowards.
which was like it's staring you in the face. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the obvious understanding of events is the right understanding of events. It's not so different from Occam's razor. Is
That's it.
this one it,
That's
is
it.
the simplest explanation for what's going on in America is what goes on with every dominant economy of its day. When the wealth gap gets so big,
No, yeah.
there's a retreat to fascism, then that blows up the whole society, and then there's revolution and people die.
Yeah, that is something I have tried to like emphasize with a lot of people I come across. People who try to like make elaborate excuses and explanations for the behavior of Trump or Elon Musk is like, oh no, Elon Musk, he was just saying my heart goes out to you. Didn't you hear it? He doesn't even fucking say it in the video. He's clearly Sieg Heiling. It's like, okay, why don't you do that in your place of work? Why don't you do that to, like on an open highway at every car that passes by and just see how people will react? Fucking like they come up with all these excuses just try to like downplay it or justify it and it's like no it's not exactly what like don't believe your lying eyes. It's like if you apply Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is the actual one. He was Sieg Heiling and he's a fucking Nazi, or at the
Yes,
very least he's okay with Nazism. It's that fucking simple. But people are fucking cowards and they rather just fucking make up all these excuses. Like fucking the damage control came right away. The gaslighting came fucking right away. Multiple tweets were taken down. Even mine on my other account was taken down for fucking like comparing what Elon was doing to Hitler.
the Nazi salute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's god damn it, people. Like, just such fucking cowards. I can't. It's been fucking crazy on Twitter.
Well, that's what
I don't blame you
conservatives
at all for
are
not
because
being on there.
the Confederate flag waving Bible beating gun nuts, they're bullies at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if they're not bullies, then they ally themselves with bullies.
Hmm.
And what is a bully? Nothing more than a coward in disguise,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to prove to themselves and everybody else that they're better, bigger, badder than some other weaker person, and that makes them feel good.
Yeah.
And what a lot of lefty progressives, and I think progressives are there, it's just a matter of bringing the liberals into this space of the time for revolution has come. I mean,
Yes.
this is, you could argue that MAGA is the revolution and is
Yes.
actually the second coming of the Civil War. This
Yeah.
is how it manifests. And I talk about the rule of three, right? History just repeats itself, first as a tragedy, second as a farce.
Hmm.
And Civil War repeated as a tragedy with civil rights, and now it's repeating as a farce with MAGA clandestinely infiltrating American culture and society to the extent that we implode and
Yes.
people stay in debt and kids are raised in poverty and education is a joke. I just
Hmm.
don't know. Do you have any sense for like if there is a lefty revolution? I mean, what does revolution really look like? I mean, I guess we're going to find out these next 4 years, man, because these mass deportations, I think, are going to create a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Um, the tariffs are going to jack everything up,
Right.
and
It's coming to. I believe I saw a headline saying that 25% tariff on Canada is coming February 1st. It's like, okay, well,
10% on China is what I saw too.
yeah, it's like it's coming, and oh my god, like this external revenue service shit. This idea that like through mass tariffing, you're going to collect from like other governments.
Hmm.
This shit that Trump's proposing, it really is just like the most like light bulb moment for anybody that actually understands tariffs to go like, oh, this guy has no fucking
No
clue what
idea.
a tariff is.
Right.
He really thinks it acts. He thinks a tariff operates like sanctions, meaning you tariff this or that on this country or that country, and that means revenue for us. No, it's literally just like, what do I want to increase prices on? And who does it hurt? It hurts fucking us, the consumer. The companies have to fucking buy more of it before it goes up in price. And when it does get tariffed, they have to pay for more for it anyway. And fucking the price when it gets sold back to the consumer is more anyway. It, it,
Right.
it's 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 so fucking stupid. Like it's not going to work like taxes. It's just God, we are in for such a goddamn dark future because he's antagonizing not only Canada and Mexico, but Greenland as well as Panama. And I,
Yeah, I said Mexico.
yeah, I saw this TikTok a friend of mine sent that showed that government, the White House website, you're greeted with this video, and the song that's playing in the video, which shows nothing but military troops, the White House, and Trump just standing alone. It was the music was eerily similar, if not identical, to a scene in the Hunger Games where all the districts are coming through the capital city, and their outfits on those wagons that are being pulled through. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but
Hmm.
the what's really striking about that is in the Hunger Games, there's no Canada or Mexico. It's just like the entire North American
Right.
continent is just Pan America.
Hmm.
So another thing is the Hunger Games series is on the banned books list, meaning,
Really?
yeah, yeah, like in the description, because I have a Google Drive document that actually lists out like a bunch of banned books, and the reason was describes political
Right.
oppression and revolutionary upheaval, and that's the reason it's fucking banned. It's like, is this our fucking future? Like, where are we going with this? Like it sounds like super conspiratorial, but it's like, why, why go through the effort? Why? It, it's it's for a fucking reason. It's like, if people connect the dots, like a lot of people like to say I'm too hyperbolic, Megan, but it's pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Like it's like we were talking about, closer to the beginning of the stream. It's like, your videos, they fucking taught me a whole lot. It's like, if you know a lot about the conservative mentality and how it's inclined to lead you to fascism and otherize people and be self-centered in your ideology, it all starts to fucking click. It all
Hmm.
starts to make sense. And like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, because like, if I can fucking recognize all these patterns, what's stopping so many other people around me from recognizing it? It it's fucking insane.
I think it has a lot to do with my understanding of what people perceive to be stupidity,
Hmm.
which is that most people that you think of as stupid either don't think enough or they haven't been taught how to think critically.
That's it.
And
That's really it.
the MAGA that we're talking, they just haven't socially evolved. They haven't gotten past the fear, and
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
they would actually have some faith in government, and we have some like 5 goals, 5 to 10 goals for the next 20 years,
Hmm.
right? Like we never, because a big problem too in our government is the fact that the presidency is only 4 years. Like if in the parliamentary system you could have a prime minister conceivably for 15 to 20 years, and there was a reason why the framers set it up so that the president could get reelected multiple times.
Yeah.
And it's because once you find a president that works, stick with him. Like that, it's because it's really hard to find one that works. Most presidents in American history have sucked.
Yeah. It's like it's like from Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
The best leaders are the ones who don't want to be leader, who don't want to rule, who don't want to be king.
yeah, but that's a trope in storytelling.
Well, sure, but like, I think there might be something to it. I believe
Yeah,
that
you're
about
thinking about that. That's so that the Game of Thrones got that from various sources, but the fantasy genre property that really celebrated that character quality was Lord of the Rings, with
right,
Aragorn being basically this lone wolf style character that is the last person you'd think of in this world as ascending to king and occupying a position of power. And we just love his rugged individualism and how he's so good at taking care of himself and taking care of the hobbits. And wouldn't it be
right,
great if he took care of the world? I actually, in the business of storytelling, want to tell stories about people who actually do want power, and they want power for the right reasons. People like Bernie Sanders. It's like if we had a good looking Bernie Sanders, then we'd be in really good shape right now.
that's kind of also why I brought it up, is because I genuinely don't think Bernie Sanders ever actually wanted to be president, like, to begin
Right.
with. I mean, for crying out loud, his campaign slogan was,
Well, he tried to get Liz Warren to run,
"Oh yeah, yeah." Not only that, but it's like,
and then she stabbed him in the back.
of course, fucking, he he like, his campaign slogan was "Not me, us."
Hmm.
It was never really about like one particular person. It's about a fucking movement, and I still agree with that. It's like, I don't think that he actually wanted that power, but he understood, like, someone's got to do it. Like, someone's got to step up and fucking, like, call everything out as it is. Um, but
The
like,
millionaires and the billionaires.
yeah, yeah. Um, don't worry, Megan. I can see all your comments. I want to.
What's she
It,
saying?
well,
Anything interesting? Just pick one. Pick a good one
so are you? Would you say that you're anti-term limits
for the presidency.
for the presidency?
Hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's not a popular position, but it's how I feel because of what I was just saying. That once you find a president that creates a functional federal government
Yeah,
that's leading the country in the generally right direction,
like FDR
then
did.
yeah, I mean, yeah, well, that was the best example, but
Yeah.
even
Well, of
Obama
course,
would
of
have
course.
gotten a third term,
He
and
would have. He
yeah,
would have.
like
He
you know,
absolutely would have. I said,
and someone like younger, better-looking Bernie will hopefully would come along, and if he or she delivered for the American public in a way that FDR did, then they would get reelected two or three
yeah.
times. I mean, there's a lot in FDR's second Bill of Rights, something
Yes.
that Kulinski brings up from
Right.
time to time, but
Right.
I
Right.
think we should really bring that up again.
Mm-hmm.
You want
Mm-hmm.
the conservatives or people who are prone to look to the past for solutions. Like, here you go. This is what he would have done had he stayed in office. And would he have dropped the nukes on Japan? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But that's the
Right.
paradigm, guys. It's not Lincoln, it's FDR. Like, Lincoln was before the
Yeah.
Cold War. Like, Lincoln was a leader that we'll never see again. We'll never
Yeah.
see that kind of leader again. We could see an FDR. I
I
think we
mean,
could see another FDR.
Dieter,
I kind of need to in order to
Dieter,
survive.
what are you talking about? He's in office right now.
Yeah, right.
We have we have the most persecuted president in history who's never gone through more shit than the other president. Obviously, like
Right.
hello. Yeah.
Yeah, the so Game of Thrones, why don't we
Hmm.
you want to
Sure.
shift over to that?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Honestly, I've been thinking about like making a video on my other channel about it.
I also want to discuss the NFL playoffs at some point.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, well, I mean, we can get that out of the way real quick. I mean, it
Okay.
comes down to four teams. Anyone but the Chiefs, please,
Yeah,
please.
it's
Anyone but the fucking Chiefs. Like,
the second layer to
uh,
that though is I'd like to see Commanders and Bills, and I think the
me
most of the
too.
country wants
Me
to
too.
see that Commanders and Bills.
I think that'd be a great game.
I think most of the country would want the Bills in that one.
Yeah,
The
just
Commanders have really overachieved. This guy
for
Jaden Daniels
real.
is Michael Vick 2.0. Like, this guy is
I kind of agree
absolutely
with
great,
that. Yeah, yeah.
and he's like more wired. I mean, Michael Vick was
He
built
was
like a brick
wild.
shithouse. He's
No,
freaking
yeah.
stacked. The guy could bench press like 500 pounds or something. Jaden Daniels is a little bit more wiry, a little bit more. But he slings it, man. And that Commanders coach too, who I don't. He was the head coach of the Falcons when they lost to the Patriots in Super Bowl 51. Dan Quinn. So that's all by way of saying he's seasoned. He's learned a lot of
Hmm.
lessons, and
That
very few coaches win a Super Bowl on their first team. They usually have to go make mistakes at a first team, and then they're great coaches at, if they're good, then they become great at their second team.
hmm
And I think Dan Quinn is capable of doing that, because I don't think Sirianni for the Eagles is all that great. I definitely don't think Jalen Hurts is all that great, and it's a division rivalry game. So I think the Commanders could definitely go in to Philly and win that. They came from behind and won
hmm
earlier. It was a late season game,
that
the
it's gonna
last
be a
time that
great
they
game.
played.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great game. Like that. I mean, for crying out loud, I was expecting the Lions to win that game because they've gone
Everybody
far.
was.
Like, yeah,
Because they're the
fucking
best team in the league. They
ins,
still are the best team in the league. They just lost that
ins,
game.
yeah, insane game. I really hope they do make it to the Super Bowl next year. Like it was like the fucking Detroit Lions, them and like them in the Super Bowl. Because like they've been known as like the team for several years now as like losers. You know,
Yeah, they're like
like
the Browns. They were like the Browns for a really long time. The Browns is like the
That's right.
standard. The
Yeah,
Browns is like the standard for loserdom in the NFL.
them and the
Because
Jaguars.
at least the Bengals have made it to a few Super Bowls, but the Jaguars have only been around for 30 years. They haven't been around since the beginning of the league.
Interesting. Yeah, no,
So,
simping for the dogfighter. Megan,
what'd you say?
Megan,
Say.
simping for the dogfighter now. What is going on? She's being sarcastic about
Michael
our
Vick.
Matt Michael. Yeah, she's being
Oh,
a little
I
sarcastic.
have
Yeah,
a tough time with that too with Michael Vick, but he
of
did pay
course.
for it. I actually don't think
I think
that just because someone went to jail for something when they get out, they're like absolved of their sins. Like they still did it,
sure.
right?
No,
Like they
yeah,
still did it,
yeah.
and there should be social consequences too. But he actually did. It did feel like he was sorry and was caught up in a weird subculture
No,
that
of course. And I think
not that you or I can really relate to.
no, of course, of course. I think he's even like trying to make some sort of comeback too, like with something. I'm not exactly
Well, he
sure
was
what it
on
is. Something in
Fox, so I
media.
actually know the answer to that. So he
Yeah.
was on Fox NFL Sunday this season, I think the last couple seasons, and he is going to go coach at Norfolk State in Virginia, which is a historically black college.
That's what it
So,
was. He was going to be a
yeah,
coach.
yeah, he's going to try to
That
do what Deion Sanders is doing.
that's an
Um,
okay.
yeah, and
Interesting.
there's a
Really
possibility
interesting.
that Deion Sanders goes to the Cowboys and then the Cowboys draft his kid. That would be pretty crazy to see happen, but we'll see.
No, for real.
I'd
Y-
like to see Dion ride it out in Colorado and see if he can't win a title there because he's going to be great for recruiting. But anyway, the Commanders, yeah, the Lions. Everybody wanted Lions Bills when the tournament started
Yeah.
because that way it would have been a guarantee for a first time winner. So now there's no guarantee it's going to. Well, the Commanders are a new franchise, but when they were the
Right.
Redskins, they won
Redskins.
three.
No, right. Yeah. Megan even says the Lions deserve a Super Bowl, and I agree. I think. I mean, maybe next year, maybe they'll get
Well,
their shot. But
they deserve a Super Bowl. That's interesting. The word deserve, merit, earned, within the context of sports,
I
it's either
well.
you win or you lose. Like, no,
Mhm.
they don't deserve a championship. They have the talent. I mean, it's like saying the Ravens deserve a championship because they're a damn good team too. And the last time they played, the Ravens smoked them. So
Mhm.
the
They
Ravens
do.
don't
They
deserve a championship because they choked. That
yeah.
guy Andrews dropped the ball. Like it's not. It
Mhm.
might not feel fair, but it actually,
Yeah.
unless there's really bad refereeing, it is
Yeah.
fair, and it's supposed to be a meritocratic system. And so the Lions
That's
blew it. The Lions turned the ball over 5 times, and
yeah.
the thing that the cardinal sin of the National Football League is to turn the ball over.
I think. Well, well, if I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, like just like the idea is like
The fans have
I
been
think
loyal and waiting their turn, like it's their
well no
turn.
well, I mean you could argue that, but like I don't know how far you're gonna get with that. But I think they had like the best record this season.
Yes, they only
Like
lost
I
one
think
game.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they only lost one game in the regular
That's
season.
that's fucking insane. But like I what gets me is oh god what was um God where
The
I lost
Lions
it.
deserve a Super Bowl.
No. It was something
Playing devil's
before
advocate for you,
that.
Megan.
Like you talked about refereeing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it does come down to that because I actually came across a clip recently from the Super Bowl where it was the Chiefs versus the Eagles, and
Yeah, two years ago.
that really bad call,
Yes.
um, like close to the end of the game where they were tied at 35,
Yes.
and
It should have gone to OT because the Chiefs were going to kick a field goal, and then there
mhm,
was going to be about a minute and a half left. The
yeah,
Eagles had been moving the ball pretty well, so it's
hmm
safe to assume the Eagles would have had a really good chance at least tying and maybe even winning that game if that penalty hadn't been called. So yeah, that was suspect.
both,
So there was also a suspect officiating in the Bengals Rams Super Bowl, which was 56, I believe, maybe
hmm
50. Yeah, 56, or I
Super Bowl
think so.
56.
Yeah, because 55 was Bucks Chiefs, and then 56 was Bengals Rams,
That's
right?
right. It was the Bengals
Fif-
and Rams. That's
and then
right.
57 was Eagles and Chiefs.
Right.
58 was
Right.
last year, which was Niners and Chiefs,
I
and
remember
then
now.
59 is this year.
That's right.
So
Okay.
the Eagles could have. That's why I liked. I mean, I really like the overtime bet. And as a matter of fact, I predicted overtime in last year's Super Bowl on the Vanguard last year. So I don't know if this year's Super Bowl, we'll see what the matchup is going to
Right.
go to overtime. But the salary cap has really produced a lot of parity, and it's a
Hmm.
brilliant. It's ironic. Like if you want to make an argument for socialism, it's like the idea of revenue share. Like the NFL, America's greatest sports product, is very
Hmm.
socialist. You know,
Yeah.
revenue sharing and making sure all the teams are taken care of, and
Hmm. Hmm.
everybody gets the best treatment. Like it's,
Right.
you know, even if you're the Jaguars, you still have the same financial ability as the New York Giants,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's socialism. And that's actually fair. That's a fair competitive system.
Right. Why can't
And
we
so,
apply that to fucking broader society? Goddamn.
well,
Yeah.
we do, and there's a political impetus too. There's historical examples like Teddy Roosevelt with the trust busting, where we've gone through this before, but we don't have that leadership right now.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um.
And that relates to a DNC cultural quality of equality. And I've talked
Hmm.
about this before. They've made it ubiquitous, and they think everyone's a leader. And
Hmm.
part of our advocacy on here is saying no. And comes from sports. It's like not everyone's a leader. Very few
Right.
people are actually leaders. It's actually like one captain, two captains, three captains tops per team.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Um. Going back to refereeing,
Yeah.
I've I don't know if you picked up on this, but I've seen I've come across a few clips where officiating of games played by the Chiefs
Yes, the Chiefs are
seems,
favored. Yes.
yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
the league loves the Chiefs because they
They're
want. So that's the
yeah,
ironic part of
yeah.
sports. Okay, so when was the last time baseball was really kicking ass in a mass appeal? It's when the Yankees were kicking ass. So the weird, unexpected part, counterintuitive, the most
Well,
counterintuitive part of the sports media is that you would think most people want a rotating carousel of champions. They want a different champion every year for like 10 straight years. Actually, what's better for ratings is to have one team be dominant in that
hmm.
decade and everybody hate them. And that's what the Patriots were for 20 years. And the
Yeah,
Patriots era constitutes the greatest growth of any sports product in the history of America.
yeah. And now it's the Chiefs' turn.
And now it's the Chiefs' turn.
That's that's exactly it. They are the darlings of the NFL right now. And
Yeah,
I
and there were
think
a
I
lot of calls that went the Patriots' way that shouldn't have.
no, right, of course. And like it's
There
just
were also a lot
so
of calls that went against the Patriots, which I can talk about in reference that
mhm.
fucked us a few times. I mean, that's if you look at the in the Patriots seasons, they almost always made it to the AFC Championship game.
Right.
Like
No, of course. Yeah.
it was a 2 game season. It was the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. I mean, and that's one thing that Patriots fans got that very few fan bases have is they have the context that motivates you to pay attention to the entire league. When you're the best team, when you're the Yankees of the NFL for 20 years, you're going to start to pay attention to the league as a whole, especially because there's only one game per week. So there's
Yeah.
actually a manageable data set there that you can do. And so
Right.
very only Chiefs fans can really relate to this now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and compare that to baseball, where there's like a few games a week usually. And speaking of which, you mentioned the last time that baseball was really popping off, like culturally, is when
Yeah, it was when the
the
Yankees.
Yankees
Yeah,
were a franchise.
right.
When was the last time they like when was the last year they were considered like a dominant force.
The Yankees, they were in the World Series this year,
Oh
weren't
yeah,
they? Yeah, 2024 World Series. Pretty sure. Yeah, no, yeah, it was the
were
Dodgers and the
were,
Yankees.
were they before this? Were they lackluster, and that's why it hasn't been
No,
like
they've been
as.
relevant, but it's just because it's the Yankees. You either win the World Series or it's a
Mhm.
losing season. That's
Okay,
just the way it goes. Once you've won multiple championships, I mean, even for Niners fans now, it's you either win the Super Bowl or it was a loser season. And
right,
that's probably the way it is for Cowboys fans too.
right, yeah,
Of
because
all the aristocratic brand name teams in the NFL, I think life has been toughest for the Cowboys fans since the 90s for the last 25 years. You know,
yep,
because
yeah,
they had that 3 out of 4 thing, and then they
yeah,
just sucked. Then they just sucked. Jerry Jones's ownership style. Well, I mean, it's not a coincidence that the salary cap was implemented at
mm,
right in the middle of their dynasty. So
right.
that created a greater emphasis on talent as well as coaching talent, not just on the field, but coaching talent and coaching style.
Right. The reason why I bring up is because like I don't really pay much attention to baseball at all. Like, because I'm a Giants guy, San Francisco Giants all my life.
Right.
And I remember just how fucking poppin' they were in the early
Yeah.
2010s.
Sure.
Was it World
Didn't they
Series
win 3 out of
2010?
5 or something?
Yeah, 2010, 2012, and 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think they won all three of those. I forget, but I know that I know that they went to all three of those World Series for sure.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, I completely, I totally see it now. Like, because it does come down to a ratings thing, which of course,
Yeah.
fucking maximizing profits.
And then,
If
but
you have an
the ratings and
unstoppable
the
dynasty, then
rating the
yeah, go ahead.
ratings in sports the ratings in sports a lot of times revolve around rivalries.
Yes.
And there's no greater rivalry in professional sports in America than Yankees Red Sox.
Hmm.
So I don't think that baseball will ever achieve the success that it had in 2003 and 2004 when the ALCS featured the Yankees and the Red Sox. And it was kind of a passing of the torch where in 2003 there was this quintessential Red Sox loss in Game 7 off of a home run by Aaron Boone, who would later become a Yankees manager. And that ended their season. The next year, in 2004, the Yankees get up 3-0 in games, and then the Red Sox do something that no Major League Baseball team has ever done, either since as well, which is come back from 3 games and win 4 in a row to win the series.
Really?
So yeah, you don't. Yeah, see, it's
It's
people don't
before my
remember
time
that.
a little bit.
I
It's a
know,
little
but
bit
it's
before my time.
history. Everybody should know about the 2004 Red Sox because that's the only time that's ever happened. And
Mm.
that comeback, so that's one of the two greatest moments in Boston sports history, the other being Super Bowl 51 when the Patriots were down 28-3 and they
I
came
remember
back
that.
and forced overtime and won that game in overtime, and it's considered the greatest Super Bowl ever. See, you're a little bit younger than me. You don't really remember maybe when the Super Bowl was god awful. The Super Bowl used to be a blowout every time, and then Elway and the
Hmm.
Broncos beat the Packers and denied the Packers from going back to back because the previous season the Packers had beaten the Patriots.
That was the late '90s, wasn't it?
And it was 97, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I did just a little bit. Of course, like not witnessing it, like not being alive for it, not understanding like the cultural significance, of course, because it is still like before my time. But I know it's just a little bit. But
Well, we're trying to
yeah,
get lefties into sports, and I've
this is
kind
going to
of
be a whole. This is going to be a whole ass segment. Just the
yeah.
sports talk will
Well,
be on post on my channel.
well,
But
it'd
yeah,
be cool to get on Emma Viglin's channel because she
no,
talks sports.
exactly. You know what? Like
But I
what better
haven't
person got?
in
What
fairness,
better
I haven't
person?
watched it. I don't know if she deals with like what can we learn from the psychology of sports, which is just the psychology of competition.
It would be
And
great to pick her mind about that. Honestly,
yeah, or share our thoughts and have her learn from us because
of
maybe
course,
we've done a little bit more thinking about it.
of
Because
course, of
have you
course,
did you
of
ever play
course.
contact sports?
I played football in high school. Yeah,
So you did. Okay. So
yeah,
remember there's no replacement for experience. So I think men who
I
have
miss it.
played contact sports have a certain appreciation for contact sports that other people do not have.
Right.
And it's the specific experience of getting laid out and getting knocked on
Hmm.
your ass. It's not the
I'll
experience of
never
like
forget.
blowing by. For me, it was lacrosse. So like the experience of blowing by somebody and shooting and scoring, that's fun and all. But really, the value of for me from lacrosse was actually getting knocked on my ass and learning how to get back up, and learning
Hmm.
how to just keep going and keep
Yeah,
repeating. Because just because I got knocked on my ass doesn't mean we're going to lose this game. It just means I made a bad play and I can make up for it.
it's a really special, unique experience, honestly,
Yeah.
and like it really gets me because every now and then I think about like, what if I went to college and played football? What if I was still in the shape I was in high school and I did play football? Like how far could I have taken it? It's like I was never really like a starter per se. I played tight end, I played defensive end, I was nose tackle on defense. I think I even played corner a couple times.
Really?
But like, yeah,
So you were
yeah,
fast?
sorta. I mean, not as fast as like a running back or a wide receiver, but I was tall,
Right.
and like I still am. I think I'm like 4'3". No, 6'3", and but I did like tight end because of the opportunity to receive a ball. It's just the possibility of getting touchdowns. I because
Yeah.
it's it definitely fit me too because of my height and
Right.
but like obviously I wasn't like it like good enough to be starter during like at any point, but I did play during like some games here and there. So like I'm really grateful for that experience, and I totally agree. Like just like actually participating in contact sports is a
Yeah.
unique experience, and it does give you a certain perspective that not a lot of people have, especially for fans of that kind of thing.
It's almost like a familiarity with violence that
Mhm.
makes you more comfortable with conflict and competition.
Right. I agree
And
with that.
it's something that really only men can experience because, as far as I know, we don't have any women contact sports except for maybe roller derby. But the other thing about the NFL is the implicit entertainment value derives from its superlative position in all of the world's sports, right? In no other sport are you getting as much violent physical contact on every play than you are in football, more than hockey, more than lacrosse, more than rugby, because it's a sprint contact, like going over the middle as a wide receiver and getting laid out. Jerry
Yeah.
Rice is the guy that I will talk about the most when I talk about sports figures that we should emulate, because Jerry Rice was very talented, but it was actually his work ethic that made him the greatest wide receiver ever. The most talented wide receiver ever is Randy Moss.
Yeah.
The most classy player in the history of the National Football League is Jerry Rice. Every time they celebrated him, he would give credit to his teammates, whether it
Hmm.
was his quarterback and Joe Montana or Steve Young, or whether it was the offensive lineman or a coach or anything like that. He would just defer the glory to them because he
Hmm.
recognized that his glory was only made possible by their efforts. So
Yeah.
that's a good way of explaining the evolution that needs to take place in the democratic recruiting system.
Yeah.
We need competitors. We need people
Hmm.
who hate losing. We need people who have obsessive minds
Hmm.
that wake up every day wanting to creatively communicate competitive messages to the American public.
Bingo. Completely
And
agree.
that might carry with it some danger. we'll find out in these next 4 years that proposition might become very dangerous in Trump's America.
No, for real. Megan says benched Andrews all season in fantasy after his projection was insane. Andrews, that's
From the Ravens, yeah.
oh,
He
that's
dropped the he
that's
dropped he's the one who dropped the 2 point conversion.
oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the Ravens were going to win that game. At the beginning, before the
Hmm.
game started, I was like, the Bills are going to have to play their tails off to beat this team because the Ravens are coming in hotter than they were, and so I think
Right.
that
No.
game
Yeah.
might if
Fucking.
the Bills are able to win the Super Bowl, go all the way, fine. God, it would be great for the league, and
Right.
if they do though, it'll be that game that people look at as like, wow, they really grew up. They really became a unit and worked together and didn't make
Right.
mistakes. They let the other team make the mistakes. So that's the tragic nature of sports, particularly NFL, is more games are lost as opposed to won. Most games are
Yes.
decided by mistakes, not amazing
Yeah.
plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I would
everyone's
agree
so
with that.
good. Because
Yeah.
everyone's so good. So the
Mhm.
norm is going to be that defense doesn't make a mistake. But
Mhm.
there's also coaching, play calling. Like that's really the most fun part for me watching football is
Mhm.
imagine being the offensive coordinator or whoever the play caller is, and
I like the
coming up.
Harbaughs.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Harbaughs are great.
I like Jim. John is very conservative,
Oh yeah.
um, and I hate the Ravens. You know that
No, same.
I hate the Ravens, right? Like I hate the
I
Ravens more than any other team in the NFL.
no, I did not know that. I mean,
Yeah, for
I don't blame
just
you
yeah,
because like when I was 18, they played against the 49ers. It was the Harbaugh,
right. Yeah,
and
47.
they fucking beat the 49ers, and I was so
Yeah, it
pissed.
was Super Bowl 47, I believe, right? Because
Hmm.
46 was the Patriots losing to the Giants for the second time.
Yeah,
And
I think that's
48
2017. Yeah.
was Peyton Manning getting embarrassed in New York City by the Seahawks. And then
Hmm.
49 was a lot of people consider 49 the greatest Super Bowl ever because it was kind of a seesaw game and it was close the whole time. That was the Seahawks Patriots with the Malcolm Butler interception at the 1 yard line.
Mm.
But I think it's Super Bowl 51 because there's no more entertaining a game. There's no more rewarding of a game in terms of watching it than watching a team go from hell at 28-3 to coming back, forcing overtime, and winning, right?
Yeah.
That's in terms of
Yeah.
comebacks. There's only been 8 comebacks in NFL history of 25 points or greater, and one of
Right.
them was Super Bowl 51. So,
Right. I will say. I mean, fucking can't stand the Ravens, but I will say Lamar Jackson is
oh, I
really
respect
fucking.
them as competitors. So
He's
this
so
is a
fun
good.
to watch.
So here's a fun question for us.
Hmm.
Nixon, who's like my favorite evil president, right? I'm fascinated by Nixon. He's just so ugly and like just like how the hell did that a guy who looked like that in the era of TV become
Hmm.
president?
Right.
So, and he was just such an asshole. He's just so awkward. Like I want to
Yeah.
understand Nixon. It's like I want to go back in time and help him so he didn't have to do so much damage to the office.
No,
But
for real.
he said one time a reporter asked him, he said, "Why do you hate us?" Us being the media. He said, "I don't hate you because if I hated you, that would mean that I respect you."
Mm.
That's a very interesting understanding of hate. Like, if you hate someone, does that mean that you respect them? And maybe that's how we get around this understanding of MAGA America as overgrown children is I don't hate them because I don't respect them. I hate
Right.
the ideology. I hate the leaders because I actually do respect their ability to wield power because look at what they've done with it.
Yeah.
But I don't respect the citizens that are actually casting the votes. So I don't hate them. I don't hate MAGA trash. I just don't respect them. And I
That's
think the
actually
world would be better off if they weren't allowed to vote.
that's a great way of looking at it because for me it's like I fucking hate Donald Trump. I'm so sick of him. I wish he would just go away. I am tired of seeing him. I'm tired of listening to him. I'm tired of how fucking stupid the things he says are and how fucking frustrating he is to fucking deal with. But also, I do kind of respect him in the way
I
because
respect him as a competitor,
sure, because like that, yeah,
but he breaks the
like
rules.
he
He doesn't care about the rules.
exactly.
He
It's
plays
like
dirty.
the
Plays dirty.
Democrats can learn from that. It's like what we talk about with football. It's like fucking learn to have that competitive edge, that competitive mentality, like want to win. But like anyway, he he does come off as a competitor, and like he's been I
Don't forget he went to military school for high school. He went to a military academy for high school. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, that instilled
Interesting.
that's his foundation of competitiveness. And he wanted to be better than his alcoholic brother who ended up dying.
Oh,
And
for
he
sure,
wanted to make his dad proud because he was like the surviving son.
for sure. I actually didn't know that. I mean, that actually kind of checks out a whole hell of a lot. But like, either way, like he like I would respect him a whole hell of a lot more if he just was not president. Like
Yeah, he
of course,
definitely
like
overstepped. He overstepped, but he got away with it
he
because of our
did.
system.
No, for real, and he's fucking unintentionally funny in a whole bunch of different ways, and
He's
it'd be either
stupid funny. He's not
he is
like
stupid funny, like
he's not smart funny. He's stupid funny.
yeah, yeah, he's just a fucking goofy, awkward fuck like that has barely enough charisma to where it comes off as kind of charming sometimes,
Right.
but he uh, not with with the kind of power he has and what he has done to the country and what he plans to do. That's where it's just a fucking brick wall for me.
Right. I mean,
I can't go past that. You know?
the most insightful thing I learned about evil in storytelling from film school was that the bad guy doesn't think he's the bad guy. The bad
Yes.
guy thinks he's the good
Yes.
guy.
Yes.
Something to keep in
Exactly.
mind. And there we go
Exactly.
again with the oversimplicity that modern media encourages in people's cognition. There are different kinds of evil. There's different kinds of bad. There's different
Yeah.
kinds of insanity. There's different kinds of stupidity. And we need leaders who understand most, if not all of them. You have to
Yeah.
understand the enemy in order to defeat them. That's a lesson from competition in the NFL, where the salary cap makes it so that any given Sunday, Team A can beat Team B, no
Hmm.
matter what the point spread is.
Right.
You know, the New York Jets were 18-point underdogs to the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III, and they won that game because the public had no fucking idea how good the Jets were and that it's still a football game. And, this was before the salary cap, obviously, but
Hmm.
um, the point is that upsets can happen.
Yes.
2016 was a huge upset. 2016 was a huge upset. 2008 Democratic primary with Obama over Clinton was an upset.
Hmm.
She was the favorite going into that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
America likes an underdog if you're on the left, and that's why I'm not convinced it's going to be Newsom. It probably will be, but I'm not convinced. We'll
I
see
hope
what
there's an
happens.
upset. I don't want
The
him.
So we both want Commanders Bills in the Super Bowl.
I think yeah. I would prefer that over yeah. Overall, like yeah.
I
I mean,
wish the Bills were hosting this game. It's really a bummer that it's in Arrowhead, but they've gone on in there and played well before. I don't think they've gone in there and won in a
yeah.
long time, but the Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season. So usually
Was it at
the
Arrowhead though?
no, it was in Buffalo.
Okay.
And the Ravens beat the Bills in the regular season, and then the Ravens just lost to the Bills. So usually the team that loses the regular season game wins the postseason game. It's a weird norm that isn't always true, but it very often does ring true. It actually happened in college football this postseason with the Ducks and with the Oregon Ducks and the Ohio State Buckeyes. they had played earlier in the regular season, and the Ducks barely beat the Buckeyes, and then they saw each other in the Rose Bowl, which is a game I actually went to, and they destroyed them. The Buckeyes destroyed the Ducks.
Hmm.
So, you know, we could have won in 2024 is kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, we could have won. We
Yeah.
could have won.
Yeah.
And it's only by learning from the games that you could have won do you become a better competitor. The left thinks it's just enough to have the best arguments. That's what
Not
that's what
anymore.
they don't understand. No,
Not
but I don't think
anymore.
it's ever been enough. I don't think
Right.
it's
No,
ever
of
been enough.
course.
I
Of
don't think it's ever
course.
been enough. It's not good enough to have a good product. You got to sell it. You got to put it in the marketplace in a way that's going to give it a good chance of being sold. And the same is in a free society where there's a marketplace of ideas that's now distributed through modern media, which has become infiltrated with conservative propaganda. And,
Right.
some lefty propaganda too, I guess. Although the lefty propaganda is the inverse of the conservative propaganda, because the conservative propaganda is really extreme. It's right
Yeah.
wing as fuck. There's a lot of anti-Trump Republicans out there, but they're the minority. Whereas on the left, the majority is Obama, Clinton, Biden
Hmm.
neoliberals who
Yeah.
just aren't doing their homework. I think that they fall to the same problem that a lot of conservatives do, where if they knew more about Obama's policies, if they knew more about Clinton's policies, they wouldn't want them at the conventions. They wouldn't want to promote them. They wouldn't have interviews with them on MSNBC every other goddamn month.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
just
I couldn't agree more.
we're so desperate to look like winners. We just gotta be like, oh, remember the good old days when Clinton was president and we were in charge? It's like, well, look at
Yeah.
his policies and you'll realize that no, it wasn't a long-term positive for him to be president.
No, yeah. Megan even agrees. She says neoliberal propaganda mostly. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
Uh,
this idea that like capitalism, that this idea fundamentally that
mhm.
incrementalism is going to save the day is ridiculous.
Yes.
It has just been proven like over the last 8 years, more so than it had been in the previous 16, 36 years, whatever, that incrementalism just doesn't work in this country. The country's too damn big.
Yeah.
The country's too damn big. We need sweeping structural change. It could have just been sweeping change if we had done it 20, 30 years ago. If Gore had won, for example, in 2000 rather than W.
If
Right?
only. If
We could have
only.
had maybe incrementalism or like incrementalism 2.0
A
could
head
have
start on
worked.
climate
Could have
change
worked. Yeah,
mitigation.
maybe it could have worked if Gore had won that election, but Bill Clinton decided to get blowjobs in the Oval Office, and so he lost by a razor thin margin, and he should have blown him out.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, honestly. Um, yeah, Megan, I hope you're coming to the Super Bowl party, by the way. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to have like a big old get together for my at my place um, for the big game for sure. So I guess a couple more things for the stream. Megan wants us to talk about Ross Ulbricht. You know who that is, by chance?
Ross Ulbricht. That sounds really. I should know.
I guess Trump just gave him a pardon. He ran a
Ross
website.
William Albrecht.
Yeah,
Ulbricht.
from what I understand, Trump just gave him a pardon, and he ran a website that hosted human trafficking and
Silk Road.
yeah, Silk Road. Like, you could buy drugs off of the website. Um, you could do murder for hire on it. Just from what I understand, he went to jail because of this website's existence, and like, I mean, I don't know much about him, but like, if this is what you were
He was
fucking
distributing
hosting,
narcotics,
yeah,
heroin, cocaine.
right.
I
It's
mean,
like,
he was sentenced to life in prison.
right. Why the fuck was he pardoned? like
Libertarians is why. That's what they say.
right, yeah, a lot of libertarians, which Megan is one, is celebrating the pardon, I suppose, and like I don't get it. I don't know what it does for Trump other than like I guess garner favor from the libertarian base, which I mean they're not really fond of Trump to begin with, so it's like I don't know.
Well, he
I don't
wants
know.
everyone to love him, except for the people who will never love him, which is the
Right.
left.
Yeah, it's basically like dark web eBay, a web order. You could order clean cocaine off of the
Right.
fucking web. Which I mean, I guess that's fine. Like I have no issue with it. But
Jesus.
like for I mean,
They have
I
testing,
don't know.
in Europe. If you go and get cocaine, they have you can go buy a test
No, of
to take
course.
to test the cocaine that you buy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
I could probably even get my hands on a test myself, but it's like, I guess like for the cocaine that's available here, you can like acetone wash it, so that way it's as pure as it can possibly be. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I gotta. Um, never mind. Never mind. I almost revealed a bit too much. But Megan says he just facilitated, didn't sell anything, but also did monitor sales. Got 2 life sentences. You can get tests in the U.S. Roll safe. Yeah, yeah. Roll safe is. I think that there's definitely a lot of networks. There's some different outlets that you can look towards that actually distribute tests, and so that way, like you know that the shit that you're using is clean and it doesn't have a bunch of bullshit in it like fentanyl. Um, yeah, no, like people, junkies and whatnot, they get creative with this shit. They want to be safe too. Like if they're going to be using, they don't want to get got. They don't want to get fucked over.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Does Megan want to hear about the Game of Thrones analysis?
she probably doesn't, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
All right. So let me just give you. So I don't remember everything,
Hmm.
um,
I
but
just finished.
right. Yeah, and but you also watched it in such a way that you just went from episode to episode, right?
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I watched. Okay. So I was watching it when it was coming out, and I would watch every episode at least 3 times in between, in the week, in the days in between when they came
Okay.
out Sunday to. So they would come out Sunday night, watch it
Hmm.
Sunday night, probably watch it again right away, and then
Hmm.
watch it again sometime later that week. So I know Game of Thrones really well,
Interesting. Okay. No,
really well. I was
that's the
obsessed
way
with
to
it.
do it. Three
I was
times is the charm, honestly.
Well, it's because it was a masterpiece, or it was on its way to becoming a masterpiece. Now,
Right.
there's a few medium is the message comments to be had with respect to Game of Thrones. And if you noticed, do you agree that seasons 1 through 4 were vastly superior to the last 3 seasons?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's
So
especially yeah,
go ahead.
like no for like I think especially when it came to Tyrion, like like
Hmm.
he was my favorite character for those first 4 seasons, without a doubt.
I think it peaked at
Megan, shut up.
the mountain
Sorry.
and the viper fight scene, the battle royale. What's it called? The trial by combat between the viper and the mountain was probably the peak of the show. That was the second to last episode of
Yes.
the 4th season, and then you
Mhm.
had the Tyrion Tywin resolution in the following
Mhm.
episode, where Jamie kind of saves the day, and that whole Lannister
Yeah.
clan was fascinating to me. So
Of course.
this is the real art of storytelling with respect to good and evil, where the good, the Starks,
Mhm.
right? They're the
Mhm.
most obviously benevolent people in the Seven Kingdoms.
Yes.
It's kind of obvious if you set up a situation what the right course of action is to do. And that's
Mhm.
what the Starks represent. The Starks represent righteousness and community and fairness. and duty and so forth. The Lannisters are gamesmen. They win the game because they have the most gold. Remember the golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rules. And so
Yeah.
the Lannisters thought that by financing Robert's rebellion, they could get power, and then he married Cersei to Robert, and Robert was in love with Stark's sister. I mean, it was a big
Yeah.
conglomerate. So all that stuff is fascinating to me. I
Hmm.
love the first four seasons going deep into that world. Dragons were not as big of a part of the show until
Hmm.
season five. So the biggest medium is the message moment, though, for you to understand why things dropped off after season four is because George R. R. Martin,
Yeah.
the writer of the books, left the writer's room. So then
Yeah.
you had the double D's, D.B. Wise and David Benioff, writing for that show without the guidance of the godfather of the world,
From,
the
from
god of the world, the
yeah,
creator of that world.
from what I understand, the books weren't finished. So like the books basically
Yeah,
ended
that
off
was in
like
season
season
seven, though.
five,
That was like season six and exactly.
like
Yes, it started to
five or
overstep. It
six.
started to overstep in season six and seven.
From what I
So, but the other,
understand, like
go ahead.
George R. R. Martin like gave, I guess, guidance on where like he wanted the
The
story to
big, yeah,
go for the rest of the show,
right.
but didn't actually write the source material
Yeah, he
for them
still
to
hasn't
go
written it.
off of.
He still hasn't
I, th-
written the Winds
I,
of Winter.
No, right. Yeah, he still has a lot more to write. I think he just finally put out a book a year ago.
Yeah, the Targaryen
Um,
kings or whatever.
yes, something like that. But yeah, no, like so, like after like around season five, I think it was after the when Jon Snow was killed. I think that is where it was kind of left off. I think it was around that point, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, that's kind of like what made the first half plus of the show so compelling, is because it was just like directly from the source material itself.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And adaptations are fantastic in the right hands
Hmm.
because a lot of the details of the characters have been fleshed out, and your intuition, if you just thought about it for 5 minutes, would make you realize that you can only extract maybe 20-30% of what's in the books onto the screen because you simply just do not have that much time. um, that's the medium of the message, is that the medium is the message because
Yeah,
limitations are creativity's engine in a weird way. So
for real though.
the uh, the other medium is the message moment happened later in the series, the last season, when the Double D's, the writers, got a Star Wars trilogy. They were hired by Disney Star Wars
Yeah.
to write the Knights of the Old Republic trilogy, and then were distracted by that clearly in their writing of season
The final
seven. Because
season.
as I recall, seasons one through four were pretty close to perfect. Season
Hmm.
five sucked. Season six was acceptable because it had the Battle of the Bastards
Yes.
and the Light of the Seven. And
Yes, that
then
I thought those were
season
really good arcs.
yeah, those were amazing. And then
Yeah.
season seven was an abomination because the Double D's just were not hungry artists anymore, and they got
Right.
lazy.
I don't remember
And
much about season seven. I don't remember disliking it, but I can't tell you what exactly
well,
happened
for
during it.
example, there was also just a lot of there was a lot of problems with continuity, like the night battle against the army of the
The Long
dead,
Night.
the
Yeah.
long
In,
night,
in
right?
season eight. Yeah.
The Dothraki with their flaming swords or whatever run right into the army and get swallowed up. And then in the last episode of that season, which I don't know if it was the next one or the two after that, I can't remember, but the bells, the
Hmm.
Dothraki are seen protecting Daenerys as
Hmm.
if they all didn't die. And even in the commentary, the post episode commentary, one of the writers, I think it was David Benioff, said that we are witnessing the destruction of the Dothraki. and then they show up in the last
The last
episode of the
episode, yeah.
series.
So
It's
yeah,
so stupid.
it
It's just
doesn't make that.
insulting.
Yeah,
No.
now that you mentioned it, that yeah, no, that doesn't fucking make sense at all. It doesn't. And another thing too, fucking, I'm glad that you even brought that up because it's like, okay, so in the last episode, you know, when spoiler alert, fucking whoever's watching this is like fucking like I hope you've seen the show or just don't even care, but like after Jon Snow kills Daenerys,
Yeah.
we just jump ahead and like a council of the kingdoms comes together and be like, oh, who's going to be the next leader or whatever, and it's just like Daenerys was seen talking to her armies. Like you have Grey Worm there who represents the Unsullied, but like we saw the Dothraki there. Are they not going to take vengeance for their queen? Because we've seen how they are throughout the entire series. It's so like they were just completely just tossed to the wayside after Daenerys was killed. So it's like
Right.
that didn't really sit right with me.
Well,
Honestly,
I was
the Dothraki in
commenting on
general.
your chat last night
Hmm.
about how no one finds John to be their favorite character by the end, and yet he is kind of the engine for the first four seasons. Him getting killed and then crossing over in to be with the wildlings and live amongst them, not so different from like my ancestor Tom Savage, who went to go live with the Native Americans so that he could speak their language and learn their customs, and then that would he negotiated commerce between the
Hmm.
settlers and the Native Americans. And in Jon Snow's journey, he unites the wildlings with the Night's Watch, and then everybody else south of there in in the Kingdom of the North to
Hmm.
battle and save the Seven Kingdoms from the army of the dead.
Right.
So that
That
was kind of the most important through line for the entire series.
Yeah, that was probably like the biggest thing of season 7 that I actually like really truly appreciated and thought was really cool. It's just like yeah, okay, Jon Snow is brought back to life. He's getting all these people from the north together to like understand like, hey, we have a common enemy that we all need to fight. We need to convince the rest of the seven kingdoms to join us. And
Right.
I thought, and, that's not a bad fucking plot line. Like it was of course like dragged out, but like it's kind of it's kind of funny like how dragged out season 7 was and like unmemorable it was compared to how rushed the final season 8 was. I think the long night could have easily been a couple of episodes. I mean, like
It
almost
should have
every
been a
season.
season finale. It should have been the season finale of season 7, and then
Sure,
season 8 should have been all about Daenerys' psychosis. That's the thing that
sure.
happens at the end is you don't believe that Daenerys would do that, right?
I
You don't
mean,
believe she would torch King's Landing simply because she feels left out by the fraternity of the North. That's kind of kicking ass and taking over the Seven Kingdoms at that point because they saved the day on the long night. Like
I'm not.
there wouldn't be that resentment. I didn't
Well,
buy that justification for her insanity.
that I am kind of conflicted about that because from the way I look at it, I think from the very beginning, Daenerys was, as my a friend of mine puts it, a ticking time bomb. From the very beginning, she was brought up for like the Targaryens. They're the most notorious family, the most notorious clan in Westeros. From a very young age, and she was brought up to believe that she would be the one to claim the Iron Throne, to conquer, to
Well, it was actually her
just
brother.
no,
Remember?
of course, but like he's the one that like fucking like it has that. Yeah, it was supposed to be him, and then when it was left to her, it's like like I think what Varys or Targaryen said, no Tyrion said when uh when a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. So like
Right.
it's either they're fine
Or
or
they're
they're going.
insane.
Yes, and like for the whole series, you can tell Daenerys was on that cusp. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you could exactly like she was ruthless in some ways, and she was more um approachable, more open, more reasonable in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I think like ending it like that does kind of check out for her character in a way because like
Yeah, it could have
it,
worked, but it wasn't earned. There wasn't enough time. They didn't spend
right,
enough time on
yeah,
it.
they should
Like the
have. I
fundamental
Yeah,
result could have worked, but it
it
didn't
could
because of
have.
the execution.
Yeah, it was definitely it was definitely rust. I do because ultimately I do think it did play out naturally. Like okay, King's Landing surrenders. Daenerys doesn't give a shit. She wants to torch the place to like teach a lesson, and like she even like admitted to Jon Snow after all that was said and done. It's like they don't get to choose. They don't get to choose. It's like oh, so you just think you think you're the good guy, and you don't care who gets in your way. You need to teach a lesson by instilling fear, and something that a lot of people leave out about it is like she fell in love with Jon Snow. She they became a thing when
Hmm.
it was revealed that they were related. She was his aunt. He was her nephew. If that would drive someone crazy because even Tyrion said when talking to Jon Snow in the final episode, "Love is more powerful than reason." I think that's what motivated her. I genuinely believe that. I think
But that
that's also
Targaryens had a tradition of intermarrying. They had all that kind of stuff was like normal for her. It was
but
John that was kind of weirded out.
that's the thing, and she couldn't handle that. She couldn't accept because John was like too icked out about it. Like it could never have been the same because of that reality, and because John wasn't okay with that. Of course,
Hmm.
that's she couldn't fucking handle that. So like, I think that's what sent her off the deep end. I like it. It all makes sense to me that. Like naturally, that's what she would have done. Just fucking, literally go scorched earth because she couldn't fuck her nephew anymore. Like of course there are a lot of things I would have done differently. Like season 8 easily could have had a couple more episodes in it. Like drag out the story a little bit. It was obviously very rushed because the writers wanted to do Star Wars and they ended up fucking losing that job anyway. But
Yeah, they lost it because of
I
the finale.
yeah, like I I think it ended like overall Game of Thrones as a series ended fine. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't
No,
very
dude, no.
great.
Okay, so no.
Yeah.
So if you watched it as it came out,
Hmm.
it was a complete failure. It was a failure of historic proportions. It's one of the
Hmm.
worst. It's not one of the worst shows ever, but it's one of the. It is arguably the most disappointing product
Notorious.
to ever come out of Hollywood. Is
Infamous.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's just a disappointment.
A
It's
lot,
just a
a lot
huge.
of
It's a
people,
huge disappointment.
a lot of people were expecting, I would think, a happy ending, and then they forget like what show they're watching. Like fucking like this is the show that gave us the Red Wedding or fucking Cersei nuking half of King's Landing just to get rid of a religious
But
cult.
it's the way. It's the way that we
Hmm.
got there.
Right.
It wasn't earned. Like I think
Yeah.
watching the episodes back to back to back
Yeah.
and just doing a marathon like that, treating it like a
I do. I,
Sopranos marathon, it's
right.
like you gotta kind of watch those episodes more than
Let them
once. There are a
sit.
lot of little
Let them
moments.
sit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's and you
I
don't
would agree with
appreciate
that.
the way it felt like when it came out because it
Yeah,
was really disappointing. I mean, Game of Thrones
especially if you get more
is a
attached to it. Yeah.
fantasy show. Game
Hmm.
of Thrones, a fantasy TV show, could have gone down in history as the greatest TV show ever,
Hmm.
and instead, it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
nobody
the
talks about it
genre.
anymore.
Lord of the Rings is king,
Hmm.
and it
No,
probably
yeah,
always will be. I don't see
right,
anything dethroning it.
right.
Tywin, Tyrion, and Jaime. So the thing you
Hmm.
can learn from Tywin is the concept of results, where you either get it right or you get eliminated.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I want to see internally at the Democratic National Committee is we want competitors who win
Yeah.
and who don't apologize for their criticisms of MAGA, who the last thing that they're worried about is the opinion, the politics of civility, right?
Yeah.
Like Tywin Lannister didn't give a shit about conventional warfare once he realized he could end the entire war with one stroke at the Red Wedding.
Right. Yeah.
Like the Red Wedding, the Purple Wedding, the battle between the Viper and the Mountain, like those are iconic moments in TV history. It's just everything that came after them were such
Yeah.
underdeveloped ideas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I'm glad you were able to enjoy it as much as you did through the
Hmm.
last 3 or 4 seasons. But for those of us who really were into it when it was coming out, it was pretty disappointing. And it's not
Yeah.
disappointing in the way that The Sopranos series finale was disappointing because upon further review, that Sopranos series finale was actually pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
But we
I
can talk about that some other time. If
I
have you
actually
seen The
just
Sopranos?
I actually just started it. I am in the middle of season 1 right now. I'm
Okay.
actually looking forward to going through with it. I'll text
Yeah,
you.
Michael Imperioli and Steve Shermer, I think is his, or Steve Sharippa. The two of them do a YouTube channel where they talk about the different episodes. So you should check that out
For
while
sure.
you're watching The Sopranos, because that's another one where you kind of got to watch it more than once to pick up on all the subtleties. Because a lot of
Yeah.
moments count. A lot of moments count, and if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss them.
Right. You'll have to send me the
Yeah, I'll send you a
channel
link to that. Yeah, I'll
for
send you a link
for
to that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, regardless, I am actually really looking forward to watching House of the Dragon because I hear it's fucking
It's
excellent.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different kind of Game of Thrones, and it's cool. There's some cool use of dragons, and it seems like they've got a good writing team. They got great actors. HBO never lacks for great actors. They always get the best actors. But
Yeah.
it's just the House of the Dragon can't help but remind you of the failure that was Game of Thrones.
Sure.
And
Hope
until
hopefully
and
with time that it gets so good and culturally significant that like it makes up for it in a way, but like I totally understand like just because I've been watching videos about like the actors from Game of Thrones throwing shade on season 8 and reacting in the media to like questions about how good it is, like what
yeah, like
happens,
Tyrion.
just like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like
I know.
and the various
What's
actors and whatnot, yeah.
whoever I forget her name who plays Daenerys Targaryen. She's like, yeah, best
Emilia
season
Clark.
ever.
Yeah,
Amelia
Amelia
Clark,
Clark, yeah.
and then Tyrion, um,
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage is talking
Hmm.
to the media. Is like, there are no finer writers in Hollywood than D.B. Wise and David Benioff, and like
Trying to
saying it
make
just like towing the company line, like you're getting paid, so
right,
do what you're
right,
told.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
the end of Game of Thrones was a big impetus for.
I remember
Have you heard of the Fandom Menace?
the
It's a
fandom
YouTube.
menace.
Yes, the
No.
Fandom Menace is what it's called, and it's this group of YouTubers that do nothing but complain about Hollywood not giving them what they want, like little babies who
Oh
are
my
complaining to
god.
mommy and daddy about not getting what they want. But
Yeah.
they came out of the Game of Thrones failure, like of that last season, season 8,
Oh yeah.
where a lot of people would go on. This guy, one guy, Nerdrotic, that I watched, and then he's connected with a bunch of other guys. But they're just these angry people that have creative dispositions but don't have the balls to create anything, so they just
Mhm.
judge the creativity of others. And even this guy Nerdrotic admits that he used to work in Hollywood, and it's like, well, you're not working there anymore. I mean, why aren't you working there anymore? It's because you couldn't hack it. It's because people didn't like your ideas.
Mhm.
And, maybe there was some politics involved. Having worked in the industry, there's always kind of random things that are beyond your control that prevent you from getting a project made or getting a job or whatever.
Yeah.
But this fandom menace is, yeah, something you should definitely check out because it's very conservative. Like they're huge Trump supporters. Like they have had conservative politicians on their show. They talk gloriously about MAGA politicians,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's plays into something that we've talked about, which is what does the left have that the right doesn't? Creativity.
Mhm.
We have it. We
Yeah.
have creativity. They are not creative. There are some conservative comedians out there, but their shit's hack.
Mhm.
Like it's not
Mhm.
good. You can't be a conservative and be a great artist. Sorry,
Right.
you can't.
Yeah, for real. Like it. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Excuse me.
So anyway, yeah, I would say Tyrion is a popular choice. I mean, for everyone's favorite character. I
Mhm.
mean, I like just the connections. Lady Olenna was probably the best, and Peter Dance, who played, or is it Charles Dance? I can't remember. Yes, Charles Dance, who played Tywin Lannister.
Mhm.
He was absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
Talk about the power of stillness. That guy knew how to soak up attention in a room without doing anything.
Yeah.
And so Lady Olenna. My favorite scenes are between Tywin and Lady Olenna because those are the the best actors in the business are the veteran character actors. I don't know if you've ever
Mhm.
thought about this, but the reason that the veteran character actors are the best actors in the business is because they're not used to attention.
Mhm.
They're not used to being the center of attention. So they know exactly what to do with the attention once they get it. So when you have long, drawn out storylines involving characters that are played by veteran actors like Charles Dance and whoever played Lady Olenna, um,
I thought she was
then
great.
you see some unique moments in the context of performing arts that you don't see often. Usually it's the
Right.
character actor interacting with the protagonist, with one of the leads, right? Usually the character actor is there to fuel the motivation or challenges of the main character or
Yeah.
one of the main characters, like really important sub characters. But in that one, I mean, it was just, yeah, it's an amazing show from seasons 1 through 4, and then it becomes a learning exercise in what not to do when you're producing a show of that size and caliber and richness. I mean, those
Yeah.
books are thick, man. Those books are
Mhm.
really thick. And so there's a lot of great material to get from. I liken adaptations of books as like you're eating a steak, a ribeye steak, right? And what's the tastiest part of a ribeye steak? The cap, where the fat intermixes with the regular meat.
Mhm.
And that's like what you're doing when you're adapting for film or TV is you're eating just the cap. And because that's the best part. You're taking all the best
Right.
parts and putting it up on screen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a learning exercise. Though it's a tragedy. I mean, Hollywood though is a tragedy. Hollywood is
Mhm.
capable of so many great things, but it's held back by a lot of politics and traditions
Yeah.
and favors within the agency system
Mhm.
and stuff like that. I mean, one agent represents 100 and some odd A-list actors. Like, who's more powerful, one of those actors or the agent representing them?
Right. Exactly
So,
right. Yeah.
politics in Hollywood revolves around the agencies, and one thing there's probably been too much consolidation in the agencies. I don't know if people know about that, but this guy named Ari Emanuel, who's Rahm Emanuel's brother, came along and started an agency called Endeavor and then eventually merged with William Morris, which is one of the most legendary agencies in the business. And then you got CIA, who's the other big time agency. And then you've got a couple others, like what's the one that begins with a G? Oh, I can't remember. And, they're good people that work there. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're good people that are representing talent, but it's something that not a lot of transparency has been added to is the agencies and how powerful they are, because the people who work at MSNBC have agents. Rachel
Mm-hmm.
Maddow has an agent. Rachel Maddow's agent is very good because he makes sure she gets paid $25 million a year to talk about politics, and she's not even the best political commentator on the left.
Not even close.
She's
Yeah.
just been around for a long time. No,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why is Sam Cedar not making that kind of money?
Right. Exactly.
Sam Cedar's been around just as long as she has,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he makes
Exactly.
better arguments, and he's not afraid of corporate political interests corrupting the integrity of his comments.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you can learn a lot about Hollywood just by studying Game of Thrones and how that show came to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was when I saw it when I first saw the trailer for the season 1, I was like, this is like this is like R-rated Lord of the Rings. This is fantastic. And it
No,
was
for
fantastic.
real. No,
But
of
then
course.
the magic took over. The special effects took over. The spectacle took over for the story. It happens all the time in sci-fi and genre, in
Yeah.
sci-fi and fantasy. The Star Wars prequels were a classic example. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars were a classic example of spectacle denying
Mm-hmm.
the audience the quality of the story.
Right. Yeah. It really didn't even pick up story wise until like the third episode. I like the prequels. I actually think Revenge of the Sith is like a perfect tragedy. Especially like the deeper into the the lore that you get that surrounds the prequel era, because it really blossoms so much media, so much material, especially the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Like like it's like genuinely like a great show. Like, it's a kids show, obviously, but like especially like the deeper it goes on, like the nuances, um, like the stories, the character arcs between, because it takes place between episodes 2 and 3. Um, I think it was actually like really well done. Um,
Yeah, that might have been well done, but I'm sure George Lucas didn't have anything to do with that.
right? Yeah, yeah.
George Lucas is a director, not a writer. Steven Spielberg doesn't write his own movies.
Right.
Like, stay in your lane, dude. And George Lucas didn't direct The Empire Strikes Back.
Right. I think.
He's kind of a special effects geek. He's not really a great director. I mean, look who he
Right.
cast as
Yeah.
Anakin Skywalker. Hayden Christensen? Are you kidding me?
Right.
That's the best you got for Anakin
Right.
Skywalker, the guy who becomes Darth Vader. That's who you go with? There were so many
Right.
better options. There were
Yeah.
so many better options out there. I gotta believe that there were better options. He probably didn't. He
Yeah.
just probably didn't listen to his casting director,
Yeah.
or his casting director sucked.
Right.
I mean, I like
I,
the idea of going discovery with that role. Go with some actor, maybe out of the theater that no one's ever
mhm.
heard of. But
Sure.
you know, and the other mistake. So the reason why the Revenge of the Sith felt like it was a good movie. It wasn't a good movie. It felt like it was a good movie was because it had a lot of payoffs, like the greatest lightsaber battle ever. That's the thing
Mhm.
about Star Wars is they're actually sword movies disguised as sci-fi. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
more thrilling than a lightsaber battle.
Mhm.
There's nothing more thrilling than a great lightsaber battle. And that's
Right.
the
Right.
tragedy is that the lightsaber battles kept getting better, but the story didn't hold up to the lightsaber battles. And that's one thing. And then you got Disney take over and do 7, 8, and 9, which, by the way, George Lucas is on the record as saying there is no episode 7 before he sold out to Disney. But
Right.
7, 8, and 9, they take away the concept of severed limbs.
Mhm.
You're gonna have lightsaber battles, but no severed limbs.
Oh yeah. No, of course.
And yet, one of the biggest moments in the entire film history lore is when Luke gets his hand cut off by Vader. And
Mhm.
then in the next movie, what happens? Luke cuts off Vader's hand.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Yeah.
that was brilliant writing. Like, it was a core part of the world. Like, they took the stakes out of it. They just, that's the
Yeah.
thing that Disney does. Disney just castrates really great
No stakes.
stories.
No
Yeah.
stakes.
Make
Yeah.
everything
No.
soft
No.
and easy.
No
It's
big
like mac and
riffs. Yeah.
cheese.
God damn it, dude. Yeah. Yeah. No. The sequels are easily the worst fucking aspect of the whole fucking
Oh,
Star Wars universe.
they're insulting. They're
Awful.
insulting. Yeah.
Awful. Yeah. I will give because I grew up with the prequels, so like I might be biased, but what like as a political junkie nowadays, I think we've even talked about this before,
Yes.
but what really gets me about like the prequels is the political aspect of it and the fact that like you have this. It's like what Alex Jones talked about. You have this little known senator from Naboo, and he thrusts himself into the position of chancellor. He's funding both sides of the war, and like he uses Count Dooku to head the separatists, and all of a sudden the separatists are taking control of more planets in the galaxy. And as chancellor, he's granted more emergency powers, and then he creates this grand army of the Republic, and all of a sudden he's literally funding both sides of the war and
Yeah.
causing more disarray, getting more separatists to influence a lot of the senators on Coruscant, and then like he's granted even more emergency powers as time goes on, and as the
Yeah,
war
it's a good
winds.
story.
It yeah,
It's a good world. Like it had the
right.
fundamentals of a great context for
Hmm.
the story to take place within. The
Hmm.
problem is that the quality of the world and the spectacle or whatever
Hmm.
didn't hold up to the hero's journey of Anakin. And that
Yeah.
had a lot to do with too with episode 1 having him start so young and then
Hmm.
having two different actors play the same character in 3 movies. And
Yeah.
instead of giving a great actor the the beginning, middle, and end, like
Hmm.
the real journey, unless and still instead of saying the same human being, go through training and lose. The hero has to lose. That's the biggest
Yeah.
problem with 7, 8, 9, is that Ray or whatever her
Hmm.
name is
Yeah.
never does anything wrong. She like never
Yeah.
really loses.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with it was definitely better done with Luke Skywalker, without a doubt. I mean, you do have Anakin's clear um, shortcomings mentally, and like in episode 2 where he kills off the entire camp that enslaved his
Yes.
mom, and his arrogance, rushing Dooku and getting his arm cut off. Losing the battle to Dooku, and whatnot, and then in the next episode, he's a lot more focused, a lot more tight. He's a
Yeah, but we
Jedi
didn't see
Knight.
that. We didn't see that
Yeah,
growth.
yeah, of course, and that's where Star Wars: The Clone Wars comes in. And I mean, it took fucking years later for the series to manifest, and I think it actually does wrap up that whole arc, that whole era of the universe, really, really well. I'm actually almost done with it. It's actually really well done. But yeah, at the time, I can definitely see like the hate is kind of like it's actually like well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars always suffered from market forces, where in Return of the Jedi, they have the Ewoks, right?
Yeah.
The cute little
Uh
things
huh.
that every mother wanted to buy one for their kid. I mean, the
Yeah.
third one is always the weakest one. It's always like storytelling has been kind of crystallized in that the
Hmm.
real creative challenge for any good story is to have your lead character have something wrong with them, either something that was done to them or some sort of internal flaw that they are forced to address by going through the circumstances of the story. And that story should culminate in the hero's journey through hell.
Hmm.
It's the journey through hell, not the journey to hell and then back the way you came. You go through hell and you come out a different person. Like the best example that I give when I'm talking about storytelling archetypes is Inception with Leo DiCaprio, directed by Chris Nolan, came out in 2010.
Yeah.
And that internal flaw that I mean, spoiler alert. Did you see the movie?
Long time ago.
Okay, so the internal flaw, though, you probably remember, is that he is psychologically responsible for his wife's suicide. He messed with her brain so much that she ended up believing that this reality, this real world, is not the real world, and she throws herself off a building and dies. and
Hmm.
he has to live with that guilt. He has to leave the country. It completely destroys his life, right?
Right.
And then in the circumstances of the over the course of the movie, the culmination is he has to go down to that fourth level, right? Where everything's
Um,
raw, underdeveloped
yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah.
and where he
Yeah.
meets and has that important conversation with his dead wife.
Hmm.
And that is Leo's character in hell,
Hmm.
dealing with his unresolved issues. So that's really like storytelling is not actually all that complicated in terms of what
No.
makes a good story. But based on the formula that I just described, you might reason yourself that the real art of storytelling has evolved into characters, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Tony Soprano, Walter White, Don Draper.
Hmm.
You know, these big stories you can pull them off if you have a disciplined writing team. But Game of Thrones is an example of someone needed to come into that writer's room after George left. They needed a
Yeah.
third voice. It was too much for two guys to handle. You needed a third voice in
Yeah.
that writer's room.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
All right, man.
You,
What else? You want to close us out here? We're at about 2:15, and I gotta go eat.
um, I think we basically covered everything. Honestly, that I mean, at least that I had on the docket, and I'm happy that we got to bullshit about sports and Game of Thrones and whatnot. But that's it for me. Until next week.
All right, guys. Reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely,
You guys have a good one.
and that will become very obvious over the next 4 years.
Oh
Here we
my
go,
god.
bro. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
long 4 years. All
sure
right. See you
damn
guys
is.
later.
See you guys next week.